Actually, to begin, I think I will be keeping things pretty simple, and I'm following along on what everyone before me has said. A lot of really great information that I've learned a lot just sitting here listening to them. So today, in the first part of the presentation, really what I'm going to be talking about is just a little bit of background about, again, what Patrick was explaining, what MS4 means. MS4, as Patrick mentioned, is basically the municipal program to help clean up the stormwater and help to address water pollution through stormwater. MS4 stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. And one thing to keep in mind is that there is a difference between separate storm sewer systems and combined sewer systems, which run through wastewater treatment plants before they're released into the streams and rivers. A separate storm sewer system is separate, and it runs directly from your streets, over the lawns, into the storm drains, and into the streets, into the streams, into the Wissahickon Creek, without ever being treated. Can people hear me? I can't tell. Is that better? Yes. All right, here we go. And then after that, I'll talk a little bit about challenges that we're facing in Pennsylvania with municipal stormwater management, some things that come up in the course of permit negotiations, and just some general problems that, again, everyone before me has alluded to, at least to an extent. Some big picture is that pollution from stormwater is a major problem, and it's a significant problem, and in the Chesapeake Bay, it's known as the fastest growing source of pollution in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. I haven't heard that statistic for the Delaware watershed, which is where we are here, but I would expect that it's probably true here as well. And it's something that, as Dr. Featherstone alluded to before, it is something that's getting more and more attention from state and federal regulators. So it's something that we're hopefully going to see being addressed more and more as time goes on. So a little bit of history. Basically, if you think about the history of the environmental movement, the late 60s, early 70s, that's where the rubber hit the road. Clean Water Act was passed in 1972. And really what it focused on was the low-hanging fruit. It was point sources. It was industries. It was, if you think about classic sources of water pollution, big pipes that were just letting lots of water with all kinds of pollutants go directly into the rivers without ever being treated. That was the focus at the beginning. Got rid of a lot of those pollutants, realized we still have a water pollution problem, and that's not going to get us as far as we need to go. As Dr. Featherstone mentioned, as we were going through the 80s, we realized that stormwater really was something we needed to focus on. So that was adapted into the Clean Water Act in the late 80s, and in 1990, medium and large MS4s were required to manage their stormwater and to get federal stormwater permits. In 1999, that was extended to small municipalities, like municipalities that we're seeing here in the Wissahickon watershed. So the first general permit in the state of Pennsylvania, and the general permit is known as PAG 13. That's a term that you may have heard before, and it's something I'll probably use throughout the course of the night without thinking about it. I'll try not to do that. But when you hear me say PAG 13, that's what we're talking about, is the general permit for MS4s in the state of Pennsylvania. And that first came along in 2003. So what does PAG 13, or just the MS4 permit, what does that do? Broadstrokes, it's the permit that municipalities are required to have to discharge their stormwater into the streams and creeks. All of the permits, they're required to, and it's a lot more specific than this, but they actually get the public involved in the process of managing stormwater. It also addresses non-stormwater discharges that are illegally dumped into the stormwater system, and it addresses stormwater discharge from new development and construction, things like that. To get into where rubber's hitting the road here in Wissahickon, some municipalities are also required to reduce, to take additional measures to reduce the stormwater pollution that they're discharging into the creek. And let's talk about that, and let's talk about why that's an issue. Think about everything we've heard here tonight. We heard about all the different problems. We've seen the pictures. We've seen the erosion. We've seen everything that's happening. Where is that coming from? As people explain, that's coming from impervious cover. That's that exists already in our communities. So to reduce stormwater pollution, we need to. It's not a matter of just changing the way we're doing things in the future. It's not a matter of changing the way development takes us forward. We actually have to change the way we've done things in the past and make changes to infrastructure that already exists, which, if you think about it, is a pretty big challenge. One of the best measures for reducing stormwater pollution is what's called riparian buffers, planting streams or planting trees and vegetation along the riverbanks. Think about what we have. Think about Philadelphia near 30th Street Station. I-76 runs right along the river. Does anybody, how far do you think a proposal would go to get rid of the Schuylkill Expressway and plant some trees there? I don't know. I think we have some work to do before we get to that point. There's this challenge.
Is that what you're proposing, Mike?
Yeah, we'll throw it out there. We'll see where it goes. I'm sure there are lots of people that believe that that's Penn Future's position. For the record, it's not.
Right.
But, again, let's talk about that a little bit. How do we undo what we've already done? And I think what we were talking about, what we'll see a little bit more in the solution phase of this, we're starting to recognize the stormwater problem, and we have an idea for how it can be managed going forward. And honestly, I believe that if we started today, and we built a society, we would have a pretty good idea of how to manage stormwater and build our communities in a way that, manage stormwater pretty well. Unfortunately, we have a lot of work to do on what's already happened in the past. How do we do that? As you can imagine, the big question is with any municipal project, where does the money for that come from? And I don't have the answer to that either. We can talk about that a little more tonight, but that's a big problem. And the reason that's an especially big problem is public awareness. And I'll just tell a story. This is something that actually happened to me about 3 weeks ago, and I'm still sort of surprised by it. One of my really good friends, I've been friends with him for, we go back to elementary school. He knows exactly what I do. I know him well. He's an educated person. I would call him an environmentalist, but he's definitely aware. He's intelligent, has a science background, and we were having a conversation a couple weeks ago, and he just said, I don't get this whole stormwater thing. It's been raining forever. How, why is stormwater a problem? Why do we have to manage that? And after sort of overcoming the shock of listening to what he said, and I will say, it's good to keep you grounded to have friends like that who have known you forever and don't have any hesitation about telling you that what you do for a living makes absolutely no difference at all. It's good to bring the ego in check every now and then. But and I explained to him, well, it is a matter of trying to manage what we've done before, and it's not the rain that's falling. The problem is what the rain is collecting as it runs over our buildings and our roads and our surfaces and our lawns with fertilizer and everything. And I don't know whether he got it or not, but at least he stopped saying that. But I do think, I think that's a problem I'm sure we've all encountered before. It's not easy to do that. And if you're going to charge people a fee to manage stormwater and they think, what's the big deal? It's a little bit harder to convince them to pay that. And I'm sure that's something that my fellow panelists can talk in a lot more detail about. And one more thing that makes the problem especially complicated in Pennsylvania. Everything we do in Pennsylvania dealing with stormwater is really done on the municipal level. And there are over 2,500 municipalities in the state. That means there are 2,500 different programs, and everybody's trying to manage it on their own. It's difficult to come up with economies of scale when you're talking about a community the size of the Ambler Borough. It's just not easy to do that. Most other states in the country manage things on the county level or on different levels. Pennsylvania, we do it on the municipal level. That makes things very difficult.